Patrick Peterson came out and said he thinks he's going to get his hand on a football and make an interception this week. And that is because the 49ers have quote unquote tells that he is aware of. So what is he talking about? And do you put any stock into this at all? Larry, this time I will start with you.
Well, it's funny. I was sitting there in the room this afternoon when they asked Brock Purdy about that, and he's like, "Oh, he said that, huh? Oh, that's kind of." It was like this. It wasn't like, he said that. He said that. It wasn't like, WWE or anything. It was more like, oh, he said that, huh? Just like real casual. It's going to be, the game's going to be fun. I mean, I think this would be one of the best games all week one. I mean, Purdy is, there's a lot of disrespect for Purdy, and he's got a lot of confidence, and he's got a lot of good weapons. So we're going to find out. Somebody's going to be right? Steelers have a huge rush, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, but this Nick Herbig is the story there. I don't know how much you watch the Steelers in the preseason, but the Wisconsin rookie they got in the 4th round has just been a menace. So and they got Marcus Golden too. So they've got awesome edge rush. And then Cam Hayward's got 10.5 sacks. So, and then on the back end, you got Pat Pete, as they were calling him. I don't know, he's a veteran. He's older, but he's big and he's really knows how to play. And then you got the rookie from Penn State, Joey Porter. Chandon Sullivan's kind of a bigger bodied nickelback. Wallace is a veteran who was in Buffalo. Obviously Minka's the star back there. Keanu Neal's a big hitter. We all know Keanu Neal, but you can isolate him in coverage and beat him in the pass game. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Can the Niners offensive line stand up? Can Shanahan devise plays and get the ball out quickly? If he can, I do like the advantage of the 49er weapons, Samuel and Ayuk against the Pittsburgh corners.
I like it, Vish.
I think so. I think he was just very honest. If you talk to a lot of NFL players, I've had the opportunity to talk to a couple where when you talk to them casually, you'd be surprised how much they know what the other team's offense is going to do. Like I remember talking to one in particular, and he used to say, well, if the Seahawks were in a 3-by-1, every single time he knew Russell Wilson was going to throw it to the single receiver side. A lot of people, I'm sure Patrick Peterson has seen stuff where if the Niners are in certain, where you see yardage splits and all of that, if the guy is really condensed, you might be expecting 2 or 3 routes, and he might have tells on that. Niners defensive players would probably say the same thing about the Seahawks offense. The issue is in football, it's very difficult to get 11 people coordinated, even if you know what's coming, to actually stop it. And that's where I think that a lot of people are really reading into this too much. I think he was just very honest about understanding, because he feels like, well, if the Niners maybe are in certain formations or if he sees certain motions, he feels like he has a hang of what they're doing. Again, having a hang of what they're doing and stopping it are not the same thing. I'm sure if you ask the Niners players off record too, they would feel like, yeah, they have understanding about certain things in the Steelers offense that they feel very comfortable with. They just probably are a little bit smarter about not saying it to the media. And speaking of Patrick Peterson, by the way, one of the best cornerback prospects I've ever seen, one of the best corners I've ever seen. The funniest thing about this guy is that Michael Crabtree owned him. Michael Crabtree owned Patrick Peterson. Michael Crabtree in 2012 had that 3-touchdown game in Arizona. He caught the fade on Patrick Peterson, did all of that. Alex Smith was 18 for 19. That was his last game. And then he came back. And do you guys remember the 8 for 172 number he put up week 17 on Patrick Peterson to give the Niners their first 1,000-yard receiver since Terrell Owens? So I don't really care that he said this, but I also think it's funny because Patrick Peterson might go to the Hall of Fame and Michael Crabtree was his daddy.
Yeah, but everybody kind of had that player. Everybody has that player. If you look at Darrelle Revis, his player was Stevie Johnson. You remember Stevie Johnson?
Gave him
that issues. Was his guy.
It was the funky movement off the line of scrimmage. Yep. Revis couldn't handle it.
Yeah, and that's just the way that it goes sometimes. It's crazy that Patrick Peterson has been in the league for that long. When you really break it down, you're like, wow, dude played against Michael Crabtree and is still doing his thing, starting in this league. That is absolutely wild. And as Brother Bob points out, that is the third PP that we can add to his content, which is Purdy's Pimp, Pig in a Pickle, and Patrick Peterson. So there you go. Purdy's Pimp about to be riled up at the other PP, which is Patrick Peterson.
That's right. I'm very anti Patrick Peterson. No, he's just he's 33. Come on, the Niners can make plays on Patrick Peterson.
I agree.
When you're talking up a big game, that always makes me wonder if you can deliver. We'll see. He's 33 at this point, but it's all going to be. But can the Niners either get it out quick, or can the Niner O line stand up to the Steeler rush? But I think this could be the hardest hitting game of Week 1.
I agree with that. This is one of those games. If the 49ers didn't have the Rams in Week 2, this is one of those games where I would say both teams are possibly going to lose in Week 2 because this game is going to be so physical.
Yeah, and I think the difficulty also is just going to be the variations in the fronts, the multiple. They're going to show a lot of different looks, and Jake Brendel's going to have to be on his P's and Q's with protection calls, and that's part of one of the issues I had when we've discussed this game in the past. I think a lot of people know where I stand on this game. I've been standing in the same spot for it since the day the schedule came out. But that synchronization for an offensive line that has had only so many snaps together through training camp in the preseason, and you're facing a defense that does a lot, has a lot of little zone blitzes. I mean, this defense, I mean, is very famous for all the different things they do. They're Blitzburg. And so I think when you look at that and the amount of communication required to handle all of that stuff, it is a very, very difficult first game matchup.
I watched all 3 of the Steeler preseason games. The Steelers looked great in the preseason. Now, I don't know what the heck the Falcons were doing. They didn't even play their players against the Steelers. It was the Steelers 1s against the Falcons 2s and 3s in that third preseason game. But I watched Steelers, ambush Buffalo. They overwhelmed Tampa, and they toyed with Atlanta. So they're good. I mean, Pickett looked good. And he's got weapons, and they've got, who looked really good in the preseason, I thought, was the Maryland running back, McFarland, because he's fast. I mean, he is a home run hitter speed-wise. He might be a guy to watch for Sunday because that speed can bother the Niners.
Yeah, definitely can. Vish, is that a payphone behind you? I think it's a fan, right? Is that a fan over your shoulder?
Yeah,
right there.
That's a fan. I came here from the gym, so I was a little hot, so I had to.
Also, very, very funny though. Very funny.
Yeah,
the payphones are like older than Vish. So
yeah, I thought he was referring to my closet door that's open that I forgot to close before we started. Yeah,
maybe it's
when you're
at
the gym working out. Do you say your name in third person, like Vish is going to do some. Vish is going to do these tricep pull downs.
No, I do not do that. No. I will say one thing though. When I'm at the gym, I always try to watch football when I'm at the gym. So I've been going and just I'm watching football. Yeah, I was actually watching the Niners. Yeah, I was watching the Niners Steelers game. I found the All 22 that I had downloaded a while ago. I found it, and so I was watching the Niners Steelers game from 2019, and it's funny to watch because that's Minkah Fitzpatrick's first game. They had a lot of issues with the front. They had a lot of issues in communication, and that was week 3 against that front. And it was just funny to see certain things that I remember being talked about at the time. Like Tarvarius Moore was getting hyped up, and he takes an awful angle on an over route versus Juju Smith-Schuster, like one of the worst angles a safety can take. Jimmy, I mean, for game, it's funny because Dante Pettis makes a hell of a play, and he ends up like basically being lost in the Niners depth chart like 4 weeks later, but he wins that game with a hell of a play. So
that was the use check, rock bottoming Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yeah.
And the one where Minkah comes from center field and he laid out and he takes a lick to catch it on, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Yeah, you're right about that. That was Minkah's first game. That's crazy. BMAX says, how often did we hear Purdy was going to get exposed last season? Yeah. I mean, I think we heard it quite a bit, right? And it hasn't happened yet. So,
well,
are people saying that now?
I mean, let's talk about Purdy for a second. We all know the limitations, but it's also, let's talk about what he does well. He doesn't seem like he gets.
Let's not talk about it for a second, because actually that's the next topic is what you expect from us. But let's not do that.
Yeah, Larry, wait.
But no, which is fine. We didn't talk about it before.
A little leg there. I was teasing.
Yeah, we didn't. There we go. We didn't talk about it before, but I don't think that's what Patrick Peterson's saying here. The way that I read this, first of all all players try to pick up on tells from other teams, and it could be anything from. You've seen it from old NFL films, like, oh, I knew that this receiver was running this route, or he would get the ball every time he would adjust his right glove when he would come up to the line, or, little things like that. So teams are always looking for tells. I laughed when I heard it because immediately my mind went to the Trent Williams thing last year. So it just made me laugh because I can just see him on the outside looking at Trent Williams' leg and being like, yeah, run, pass, whatever. And it just kind of made me laugh. Ultimately, you're right, Vish. Tells are all over the field. And I'm sure that the 49ers are no different, nor are the Steelers.